not minutes. I'm told we are now on live on air and broadcasting. The topic of today's broadcast is Iqbal and the Lahore Ahmadiyya community. So let us dive into that straight away. Because of the delay, I think we will go through it quickly. But because I'm going to share scans with you, then that means that if anyone wants to, they can go and check the quotations in the book. Page numbers and everything is given. The book I'm going to use is called Zindarud, which is written by the son of Dr. Iqbal. Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal, who's regarded as the poet-philosopher who was responsible behind the demand for an independent homeland for the Muslims. Now, a side issue is that Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal and Javed Iqbal did not believe in revelation and true dreams and visions and this kind of thing. So I found it quite amusing when I read on page 11 of the book the reason for Dr. Iqbal writing this book. And he says there, because we've been delayed so much, I'm not going to translate the whole thing, but simply give you a summary in English, which can be cross-checked with the Urdu as it's there. He says that he saw Iqbal, who was very angry with him. And he says to him, what are you doing? And so on. And then he sees himself on a tree, and there are lots of papers, and he's collecting those papers, and there's someone else on the tree helping him, etc., etc. And then suddenly he wakes up, it's 3:30 in the morning, and he looks for a paper and pencil to write down his dream. And the interesting thing is that he says that because Iqbal says that never mind, tomorrow I will tell you by impressions of what you do. The following night, Javed Iqbal Sahib waits for Iqbal to appear to him in a dream. Obviously, it's going to be a dream because Sir Muhammad Iqbal passed away many years ago. And I found it quite interesting and even amusing that a person who says he doesn't believe in revelation and so on, he bases this writing on a dream. So the first question we need to deal with is, did Iqbal personally know, had he met, had he seen Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad? So on page 917 of this book, and it is written in quite small typescript, Javed Iqbal says that before Iqbal was born, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was in Sialkot, and he used to debate with Christians and answer them and hold public debates with them. And people of Sialkot held him in high esteem as a scholar of religion. And so far as Iqbal's father is concerned, he was friendly with Maulana Ghulam Hassan and Maulana Sayyid Mir Hassan. And so he, that is, Sheikh Nur Muhammad, Iqbal's father, knew Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And Sayyid Taqi Shah, son of Maulana Sayyid Mir Hassan, would say that when there was a debate with the missionaries, between missionaries and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, then Maulana Sayyid Mir Hassan would be appointed the judge to decide who won. And then he goes on to say other things, and then he says, and then a year or two after that, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, that is Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, again came to Sialkot. This was when Iqbal was a student. In Sialkot, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad stayed in a place which was close to Iqbal's home. And Iqbal would see him coming and going in the streets. Here I want to add something from a prominent member of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community, Hazrat Dr. Bisharat Ahmad Sahab, Rahmatullah Alayh. He said that they would be sitting on a low roof, looking at Hazrat Sahab, talking to people, and so on. And one day Iqbal turned to Dr. Bisharat Ahmad and said, "Look how moths are falling on the flame." Dr. Bisharat Ahmad and Dr. Iqbal were friends, and they were also classmates. So I've shown you this just to make sure that there is no doubt about the fact that Iqbal knew about Hazrat Mirza Ghulam, and the fact that he knew about Lahore Ahmadis. On page 874, this gentleman says, the author says, once when I had a fever, and the second time when there was a lump on the right side of my neck, it was Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg who operated and removed the lump. It was Iqbal personally who took me to Dr. Yaqub Beg's clinic, which was located on Railway Road. This is in Lahore. And during the operation, he sat there extremely worried. He sat there in his clinic extremely worried. So Iqbal knows about Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. In fact, Iqbal Sahib's father knew about Hazrat Sahib. And Iqbal knew about Lahore Ahmadis because Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg Sahib was a prominent member of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community when it was formed. So let us then carry on and see what Iqbal used to say about the Ahmadiyya community and the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement. This is not us writing. This is not anyone else writing. This is quoted by Dr. Iqbal's son in Dr. Iqbal's biography that he wrote. So he says, in 1900, Iqbal wrote an article in English, Absolute Unity, the concept of absolute unity. I'm actually translating Urdu back into English, so it may not be the exact title. He wrote, in 1900, Iqbal wrote an English article titled Sheikh Abdul Karim Jilli's Concept of Absolute Unity of God. And it was published in a magazine from Bombay called Indian Antiquary. And in that article, speaking about the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement, Iqbal said, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is the greatest religious thinker of this age. In 1909, for some questions of religious nature, of fiqh, Iqbal turned to Maulana Hakim Nuruddin, and Iqbal's questions and Maulana Nuruddin's answers were published in the paper Al-Hakam, dated 21st of December 1909. In 1910, he wrote another article, and its title was Muslim Community, and Maulana Zafar Ali Khan translated parts of it. Unfortunately, the page size was such that the scanner missed out the last line. But anyway, in which, talking about the Ahmadiyya movement, Iqbal said that if you want to see an example of pure Islamic character that has appeared in the Punjab in the form of a sect called Qadiani. In 1911, Iqbal sent his own son, his eldest son, Aftab Iqbal, to Qadian and had him admitted to Talimul Islam school. Iqbal's son used to go to a mission school in Sialkot, so he sent him to Qadian. In 1913, when Iqbal wanted an opinion on a legal matter, a religious legal matter, he'd entered into a nikah with a lady, but hadn't brought her home. In that, the marriage wasn't consummated. And then later on, he decided to continue with the marriage. And he wanted to know whether the original nikah was still valid or whether he should enter into another nikah, etc. So to find a solution to this problem, Iqbal sent Mirza Jalaluddin to Maulana Hakim Nuruddin in Qadian and said, ask him for a solution to this problem. Maulana Hakim Nuruddin said that according to religious law, a divorce hasn't taken place, but if he's in doubt, then he should go through another nikah. And then Iqbal went through another nikah with Sardar Beg. So Iqbal lives in Lahore, which is a big city with lots of scholars. He doesn't trust them, he doesn't ask them for their opinion. But he sends someone to Qadian, a small town, some distance from Lahore. And he not only asks Maulana Nuruddin for his opinion about the solution to this problem, but he also acts on that solution. And then we carry on. On 7th of April 1932, he writes to Chaudhry Muhammad Asan. Chaudhry Muhammad Asan had written to Iqbal asking his opinion about whether he should join the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement or not, the Lahore Ahmadiyya community or not. And Iqbal said, so far as the Ahmadiyya movement is concerned, as far as I'm concerned, Lahore organization, the Lahore community, consists of many that I consider to be highly honorable Muslims. Listen to the word, highly honorable Muslims. So here you can see that he specifically refers to Lahore Ahmadiyya community and refers to them as honorable Muslims. And he then goes on to say there are many ways in which Islam can be propagated. In my humble, in my imperfect opinion, the method adopted by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, that wasn't suitable for this age. But then he ends by saying, but the inspiration that I find in the hearts of most people of this organization for propagation of Islam is something that I admire. And then in this biography of his father, Javed Iqbal says that for whole of his life, Iqbal associated with something called Anjuman Hamayat Islam. And he was a member of its management, and he was the president of the committee. And the management committee always had one or two Ahmadis. And Ahmadis used to come and make speeches at the conferences and conventions of Anjuman Hamayat Islam. Iqbal did not object to any of these things, or Iqbal did not criticize any of these things. Similarly, Iqbal did not object to Ahmadis joining the Muslim League or Muslim Conference. And then we come to something more specific. We've just heard about Anjuman Hamayat Islam. Now, later on, what happened was that it came under pressure to remove Ahmadis. So what they started doing was putting all kinds of conditions in place that people had to satisfy before they became members of the management committee or council. Basically, the idea was no different to what's happening now in some countries, that you keep on adding condition upon condition upon condition, make sure that Ahmadis cannot be a part of whatever forum it is. So talking about the meeting, at the end, Javed Iqbal Sahib says, Dr. Mirza Yaqub Bey walked out of the meeting in anger. After 9 days, he had a stroke, and on 11th of February 1936, at 11 p.m., he died. And about the proceedings of the Anjuman, the paper Light wrote. Now, I want to explain here that Light was the English language organ of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community at the time. So it was, I think, weekly and then fortnightly and then monthly, and then after difficulties, its publication moved out of Pakistan, etc. So that is the Light being referred to. That Light wrote, Iqbal called him, this is Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg, Iqbal called him kafir and demanded that the Anjuman, this is Anjuman Hamad Islam, that unless and until the Anjuman removes Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg from membership, he will not accept its presidentship. And then after that, Dr. Khalifa Shujauddin, in very extreme, adopted a very extreme manner, and this announcement was adopted, resolution of this announcement was adopted, etc. Thus, Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg didn't die a natural death, but he died fighting for the rights of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community, and he's a martyr. And then he quotes the Light itself. And he then says, Iqbal didn't take any notice of the allegations made by the Light. But in their weekly magazine, the Anjuman Hamad Islam published this in reply. And amongst other things, it says, and it is an open lie. It is an open lie that Iqbal called Mirza Yaqub Beg a kafir, a heretic. And we're talking about 1936 here. And then they published the proceedings. This is Anjuman Hamad Islam. And it says, read the proceedings and then be rational. What jihad did Mirza Yaqub Beg have to conduct? And what stones did the honorary secretary of the Anjuman throw at him? And what demand did the honorable president make, saying that Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg is a kafir, is a heretic, and his expulsion from Anjuman, this is Anjuman Hamad Islam, is absolutely crucial. And then he goes on to talk about Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg dying of a stroke and so on. And then it ends by saying, so far as his contribution and services are concerned, Anjuman Hamad Islam does not deny them and no one can doubt them. If he did so sincerely, then he will find his reward with God. But sir, allegations against the president of the Anjuman, this is Sir Muhammad Iqbal, or its secretary, allegations without foundation. What was the allegation? That Iqbal called Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg Sahib a kafir, a heretic. So Anjuman Hamad Islam is saying to Lahore Ahmadiyya community, sir, a baseless allegation against the president of the Anjuman or use of derogatory language do not increase the status of Mirza Yaqub Beg. So that shows that until 1936, not that Iqbal did not call members of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community heretics, but that when it is said that he does, it is denied on his behalf. I read again. It is an open lie that Iqbal called Mirza Yaqub Bey a kafir. Until 1936, Iqbal wasn't calling members of our organization. And here is another book, Iqbal and Qaid-e-Azam's Political Thinking by Muhammad Hanif Shahid, again by, that's not me by the way, some other Shahid, published by Sheikh Ghulam Ali. And on page 113 of that book, this is when a commission called Simon Commission was sent by the British to India to determine its future and talk about the constitution. And it says that Muslims were divided on whether they should support the commission, whether they should cooperate with the commission or boycott it. And this gentleman says, Illama Iqbal, this is Sir Muhammad Iqbal, supported cooperation with the commission. And he found 5 Muslim leaders, 5 Muslim leaders, and then he quotes their names: Nawab Sir Zulfikar Ali Khan, Illama Iqbal, Nawab Sir Abdul Qayyum Khan, Maulana Abdul Hayy, Sir Rajan Shah, and Maulvi Muhammad Ali, Amir of the Lahore Ahmadiyya community. Iqbal did this. On 18th of December 1927, published the following announcement. So you can see that in many matters, religious matters, medical matters, political matters, Iqbal always cooperated with the Lahore Ahmadiyya community, and the Lahore Ahmadiyya community cooperated with Iqbal. But Sir Muhammad Iqbal Sahib said something that needs to be remembered. When asked about his opinion about later on in 1915, he was asked about his opinion of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and his claims and so on. And Sir Muhammad Iqbal Sahib said this, that only someone who knows fully what is written in the books of Mirza Sahib Marhoom. Now, Marhoom is a title that you used for the deceased, but the person has to be a Muslim. You don't use it for non-Muslims. So Iqbal says only such a person can give an opinion who fully knows the writings of Mirza Sahib Marhoom, and I do not have that understanding, that knowledge, and so on. And I want to end on 2 things, and that is, one of Iqbal's difficulties was Hazrat Saab's claim that he had true visions and dreams and so on, etc. And Iqbal denied that. Both Sir Sayyid and Iqbal denied it. But the interesting thing is on page 899, Javed Iqbal Sahib quotes this letter that Iqbal wrote to Sir Ross Mahmood, who was the grandson of Sir Sayyid. And in that letter, dated 29th of June 1936, Iqbal says, on the night of 3rd of April, when I was in Bhopal, I saw your grandfather in a dream. And he told me that I should address the matter of my illness to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And I suddenly woke up, and some poetry in honor of the Holy Prophet Muhammad appeared on my tongue. And then he goes on to say that he wrote, added to it, and then published it and so on. But I mean, it's in Persian. But that's very interesting, that the argument between Sir Sayyid, between Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam, and Sir Sayyid and Iqbal was about Wahi and Ilham, and whether people see true dreams and ilhams and have revelation and all this kind of thing. And then this book is written on the basis of this thing, a dream. If you don't regard a dream as being true, why would you do something based on it? And then again, Iqbal says he had a dream about his illness in which he saw Sir Sayyid, and Sir Sayyid said to him, why don't you ask the Holy Prophet to put in a good word with God about your illness. And I end with these words of Sir Sayyid, again quoted in this book, Zinda Ruz, on page 918. And it says, why are people hounding Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib of Qadian? If he believes he receives revelations, so be it. What good is it to us? The revelation is not of any use to our religion or to our temporal affairs. And then he goes on to talk about that. And then he says, but I hear that the man is pious. He is meticulous in his prayers and avoidance of doing anything wrong. This is enough to establish him as a religious leader. So, what are you arguing about? What are we arguing about? And then he says that he has seen some of Sam's books, and he doesn't think that they're very useful and all this kind of thing. But the point is this: I hear that he is pious. He prays meticulously and avoids sin. And that's enough to establish him as a religious elder. And then again, Sir Sayyid wrote on 14th of November 1892 a letter to Sayyid Abdul Ghani, in which he says, it is of no benefit at all to get into this kind of struggle about Mirza Sahib. He is a holy elder. He is a pious, holy elder. Whatever he thinks, he is a pious person. His ideas may not be of any benefit or any harm for us, but it is incumbent upon us to respect him because of his piousness and his religious station. It is useless to talk about his concepts and thinking and so on, because what will benefit us is actions, etc. So this is Sir Sayyid saying that I have heard that he is a pious, meticulous in prayers, and उनकी इज्जत और उनका अदब करना बसबब उनकी बुजुर्गी और नेकी लाजम है। इनके ख्यालात की सदाकत व गैर सदाकत से महज बेफायदा है। We listen to everything else that Sir Sayyid told us, but what about these words? And with that, I end, and I again apologize for the lateness in starting this broadcast caused by a system crash, but I hope it wasn't too inconvenient for you. I tried to keep the English translation only to the small relevant bits of the scans that I was showing you. You would have noticed that to draw attention to the words that I was going to consider, I had blocked out the rest of the page, because otherwise the attention wanders. Thank you for joining us. Our next broadcast is tomorrow, 7 p.m. UK time. It's the Dabbarul Quran, Reflections in the Holy Quran, from 7 to 7:30 in Urdu and from 7:30 to 8 in English. Until we meet again, I pray that Allah keeps all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.